some of the tweets that were posted last night in the aftermath of the Damar Hamlin collapsing onto the field. 9 minutes of CPR, as Joe Buck of ESPN explained. Automatic external defibrillator transported to a level 1 trauma center at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. And the latest information, again, from the Bills. This came at 1:48 a.m. Eastern. Damar Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest following a hit in our game versus the Bengals. His heartbeat was restored on the field. He was transferred to the UC Medical Center for further testing and treatment. He is currently sedated and listed in critical condition. Chris Simms joins us now. Chris, I mentioned you earlier, the health situation, the very serious health situation that you experienced in September of 2006. It didn't happen specifically. It didn't play out specifically during the game, but it was in the immediate aftermath, and you were in the focus of all of the medical experts who are there to mobilize to recognize that something serious is wrong with a player, and they recognized it with you, and they saved your life.
No doubt about it, right, Mike? I mean, it's again, I think we saw the tip-top, medical staff, the NFL at its finest moment, and really one of its worst moments there, coming together as a unit and mobilizing and getting together and doing what they had to get, to get done for Damar Hamlin and his health's sake. And yes, my case itself, it was urgent for sure, but nothing like this. Yeah, I got in the locker room. I laid down on the floor. They, poked and prodded me for a little bit, took me to the emergency room, and then it got serious, and we had to rush into surgery and all that. But this had a level of scrutiny and concern that I feel like we've never seen in the history of the NFL, and I mean, we haven't. I heard you and Peter talking earlier. It hit me, Mike, in the moment. I mean, of course, it hit me in the moment as a father, as a fan of the game, as an ex-player of the NFL, just trying to put yourself in the shoes of the players on the field at that moment, what they could be going through. And then I think the other thing, Mike, just when it hit home, right? We saw the injury, we saw the concern when they went to commercial break, but you're thinking, okay, well, hey, he hit his head, or, they're checking his neck. I hope he's okay. But it went to like code red alert when we came back from the commercial break. I don't know. That was the moment it hit me, Mike. I know you talked about when you saw Josh Allen, that was like the chilling moment. That was like, oh, wow, this is crazy serious. But when they came back from that commercial break, you saw Sean McDermott like hovering around the huddle, talking to himself. And you saw guys already in prayer. And that's when I went, whoa, wait, this seems like this is like more than the normal head injury, neck injury type of thing. And that's where, you really started to worry and get concerned. And it's just a crazy moment. It really is. It's one where it's hard to talk about and feel almost emotionally exhausted just from the night of thinking about it, thinking of Damar Hamlin, his family, and still thinking about it this morning. It's just an unbelievable moment in NFL history, and my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family.
And think about this, Chris. Think of how it affected us and so many others who were simply watching it on TV. For those players and coaches and support staff, the people who were on the field and in and around that situation, there's an unprecedented sensitivity to mental health. There will need to be efforts to make sure everyone who witnessed that, everyone who experienced that is okay. And that's part of this process moving forward for the Buffalo Bills particularly, but also for the Cincinnati Bengals players who witnessed what happened to Damar Hamlin. They are injured too in a very different way, obviously, but there are more people to be concerned about this morning beyond the very serious and real concern we have for Damar Hamlin as we wait for updates. The people who were traumatized firsthand. We all were traumatized if we were watching the game. But think of what those players and coaches are dealing with this morning, today, and what they will deal with going forward, regardless of the outcome for Damar Hamlin. And again, we hope and pray for the best. This is something that the players on both teams are going to have to process, and there's no rule book, there's no precedent, there's no guidance other than what the appropriate medical professionals believe that these individuals need to do to process and heal the emotional trauma that they've suffered, that none of us really, again, we know the risks, but they don't play out the way they did last night. We know it's possible, but we never saw anything like we did last night.
No, never. And then that's where I think, you became, pretty apparent within that, that second commercial break. And the moment you're talking about with Josh Allen, and they start to show players across the field and how they're crying and breaking down and praying and all of these things, where that was when you go, I don't think they can play this football game. Yeah. It's a game of emotion, and you have to a degree, pump yourself up to not like the guy on the other sideline. And I want to dislike him, and I want to hit him hard and show him that, we're the macho tough football team, on the field here today. There's just such an aspect of that in the NFL. And it became just too much of a real life moment. And players, yeah, they're macho football guys, sure. But again, they are humans. These are guys that have charities, are, great fathers, the leaders of their family who take care of, come from broken homes and have taken care of, brothers and cousins and everybody. So the humanity of the moment just became so great that you couldn't expect the players to rev it up and block out all the noise right away. And especially the Buffalo Bills. That's the point to me, Mike, is, along with what you're saying, is just that, hey, Cincinnati, that was tough on them, but the Bills, this is like one of their guys. This is a brother. And that's where I was like, I don't think Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and these guys can emotionally get ready and get invested back into the game, and that's not fair to them. And that's where I was glad that the game stopped and the NFL did all the right things, really, last night.
Chris, one of the points I heard repeatedly last night is how closely knit the Bills team is, because they live in a place where there isn't a lot to do. And that's not a judgment. I live in a place where there isn't a lot to do. Some of us prefer it that way. But when you do that, you become closer to the people that you are with. You spend extra time with them. You get to know them better, and it becomes even more of an emotional trauma to witness what occurred last night. There was a point where several of the Bills players were actually going to stay in Cincinnati with Damar Hamlin. Now, at some point, that became all of the Bills went back to Orchard Park, but it just shows you the love, the affection, the connection, and the damage to the individuals who witnessed it. The primary concern, far and away, is Damar Hamlin, but there is a broader issue here that the NFL, the Bills, and the Bengals need to be sensitive to as we move forward. And, the reality is, during football season, the train keeps rolling down the track. That's what's so different about this. Peter was mentioning earlier, and we talk about it all the time. And, one of the things we try to do is get people to understand the humanity of the individuals who are wearing the uniforms. It's hard because they look superhuman. They look like superheroes. They look like they can literally fly, right? They look like they are different from the rest of us. They're constituted differently. They're impervious to the things that affect us. They're not. They're human beings. Human beings under every helmet. And that's where it doesn't work like it normally does. Normally, player gets injured. I say this all the time, Chris. It is a football machine with interchangeable parts. One part is broken. We remove it. We put another one in. And it keeps going. Everybody understands that. Everybody, next man up has become the mantra over the past 20 years. People understand that this is dramatically different, and I think everybody associated with the game recognizes it, and it's something that we all process less than 12 hours from when it happened. It's like time has stood still for the last 12 hours while we primarily wait for a word on the status of Damar Hamlin. But this is going to be different than anything that any of us who cover the sport, who love the sport, who follow the sport, who work in the sport have ever dealt with. And we just have to let it play out and understand and be sensitive to everyone who was affected by it while we ourselves deal with the effects that we've experienced.
Yeah.
Millions have been affected by this.
100%. I mean, it's one that's so great. It makes you wonder, wait, can the Bills get it revved back up and really prepare for a Week 18 matchup? It's honestly something I thought about here over the last, 12, 14 hours, however long it's been. I guess it hasn't even been 12 hours yet. So it's shorter than that. But yeah, that's an incredible ask. And yes, I know these are professional football players and it's big business and you're going out there trying to prove yourself. But Mike, hey, there's like this is where, the extension of your family. Football is family, right? I mean, we've had jokes about that a little bit in the past and go, no, this is kind of where it's a real moment because, again, it's for players in a locker room. You're around these guys. You're around your teammates all the time this time of the year. It's 6 days a week. It might be 7 days a week, really. And personal aspects of all their lives and, their family and their cousins and whatever else. And to your point, Mike, in a place like Buffalo, as compared to New York, where, hey, we're going to this club or this restaurant and the team can be, a little bit more spread out through an area. Yeah, like I played in a place like that in Tampa Bay, where it was a little more of a smaller town, a smaller place. When we had a day off, what did we do? Hey, the players called each other and we hung out. Hey, let's play Xbox. Let's go fishing. Let's go to the beach. We were always together. And that is kind of the culture they have up there in Buffalo because of the city and because it's a really close-knit team. It's a team we've talked about all year, Mike, that's on a mission. We were talking about it in training camp. You could feel it when you were there, Rodney Harrison and I at training camp, just the closeness of the football team and the belief of this football team. And there's just so many aspects and avenues of this that are just uncharted water. And I just don't know where it goes. But, yeah, the number one thing is that these are caring people. And we hear about the bad apples a lot in football. I understand that. But, man, for the most part, as you and I both know, a lot of these guys are awesome, awesome human beings.
You mentioned that marketing slogan, football is family, and we have expressed cynical views about that in the past, that football is business, and they say football is family because it's good for business to say that. This is a moment where the slogan takes over. It proves itself in a way that no one ever anticipated, from the millions in donations being made to the GoFundMe page, where the goal initially was $2,500 that Damar Hamlin wanted to raise, so some underprivileged children in his community of McKees Rocks would have Christmas presents. That number, Chris, is going to keep going up and up and up because this speaks to the humanity of the players. It speaks to the humanity of the people who follow the game, who cover the game, who love the game. That's what ties us all together as football fans. And we're seeing that love for the sport and the respect and admiration and love that we all need to have for the men who play it, who put themselves in that position. As vague and small as the risk may be, we're reminded the risk is always there. And for those of us who derive enjoyment, who make a living from the sport, we can never lose sight of that again. And maybe for a lot of people, because it never happened, it didn't seem like a real risk. We now see that it is a real risk. And that's part of what we're trying to process as we move forward. We see the worst fears play out, and that's part of what everyone has to recover from as the sport moves forward, because we know the sport eventually will. But for now, I think the wise thing that the NFL has done, it's pressed pause on everything. We've pressed pause on everything. This is all we're going to talk about. We're only doing an hour today. We'll re-air it after that. We're not going to post any content at P. It all seems trivial and trite now.
It just seems
about
weird,
anything,
right? I hear
anything
you.
Other than this. There's nothing else to discuss. There's nothing else to do other than wait for official word on the status of Damar Hamlin, and also to think about the real impacts on the other players and coaches and make sure they are okay too.
Yeah, that's right. We gotta make sure all those T's are crossed and the I's are dotted as far as humans here, and worry about the guys in the locker room. And again, in the NFL locker room too, a lot of guys they're from troubled families, broken families. So your teammates and their families are really are a part of your family. It's who you lean on for advice and telling them problems and troubles. And that's kind of the brotherhood of the NFL to a degree. That's where it's at its greatest. And to you, to what you're saying, Mike, You do know what you signed up for when you play football. I knew that. I watched my dad get crushed by Reggie White and people like that for his career, for 15 years, and understood, man, this is brutal out here. I get it. But it crosses a line when, for even my own life and scenario that I went through. When you start to get into the death conversation, that's where it's like, whoa, hey, I knew we could maybe, break a shoulder or break a leg, or, I'm going to get my bell rung a few times and be rattled as far as concussion or whatever. All those issues. You understand you're going to sign up for that. But, death is not one that you think about as a football player. And as you have said, I mean, we always felt like this day could come. It's thousands and thousands of players and, hundreds of games every year. But it just has a different feel when it kind of hits you in the face and you go, whoa, wait, yeah, this is football. This is a brutal sport. But I didn't think we'd be sitting there watching somebody have to have their life saved on the football field in live action last night. That's a whole different category altogether.
There was a comment from Ryan Clark last night as he and Scott Van Pelt did a masterful job in the immediate aftermath with so much confusion of trying to understand and help us all realize what was happening and process it. Ryan Clark said, when I was 24 years old, I didn't even think I could die. I mean, it's one thing to say, I know what I signed up for, but you really don't think you signed up for the possibility that your life would end on the field.
Right.
And I think that is the thing that will cause everyone who plays the sport at every level to take a step back and process that. We kind of knew there's a possibility, but now we see a reality of a very, very serious health outcome. And that will cause folks, regardless of their role in the overall football ecosystem, to take a different look at this game. Now that we've seen that thing that we just kind of vaguely were concerned about and were aware of, but okay, yeah, sure, it's out there, but it's never happened, and it's not going to happen at the NFL level. We see stories every year about serious health outcomes at the lower levels of the sport where there isn't a small army of healthcare professionals there to provide emergency care and do what was done for Damar Hamlin. And it's not a national shared experience like this one. This is different. This changes the equation for a lot of people connected to the sport, and it just causes them to understand it's not just a theory, it's a reality, and it can be a reality, and it's going to make it different, Chris. Whenever the games are played again, whoever is involved, it's going to make it different when you watch that game, at least for a while. When a routine hit leads to that outcome, I'm going to have a hard time watching a routine hit and a routine game and not be thinking, did something else? I mean, how can we not? How can we not?
Sure.
As we just watch the sport and just the guys who play the sport, is this going to happen to me? And yes, it's unprecedented, but once it happens, it changes the way you think of it.
Yeah, it does. It brings humanity back into it, where it's entertainment, and we go, oh, wow, big hit. Now we're going to go, ooh, I hope he's okay. Ooh, man.
Not even big hit, routine hit, any hit.
That's what I mean. And that's where I think this is crazy, too. We're in uncharted waters as far as the category of health and safety here. Head. We're talking about head all year long, concussions. We're making progress. We made progress in football with, keeping the head up, see your target to protect the neck and all those areas. This is one that we don't really think of. What? Getting hit in the heart? That can cause cardiac arrest? So we're down another road here of safety of the game that really I don't think is even registered on an NFL player's brain, or what can go wrong. What? I mean, that's one that I never thought I could lose my spleen playing a football game, let alone, wait, I could get hit somewhere in the chest and like what you're talking about and somewhat of a pretty routine hit and go into cardiac arrest, that's where it's crazy as well, Mike.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.